Welcome back. All right, so news of the day video for all you fine people on the internet for your Friday, March the 31st. Tomorrow is April the 1st, meaning I might have something in mind. It is a Saturday, so stay tuned. That being said, I wanted to start out talking about the NHLPA because what's more exciting news than talking about a new guy in charge of the NHLPA? Well, in reality, this could be very good news for us as fans, for the players, maybe for the National Hockey League in general. So Marty Walsh basically saying one thing that I agree with him on 100% is he wants players to be more in the loop on CBA issues during the CBA negotiating process and especially during the time where they don't have an agreement that's up. So how often have we seen it where the NHL and the NHLPA start to have serious negotiations when there's a month left in the CBA? Right? And then it's, oh, we've got all these issues. Whoever could have foreseen this? And we as hockey fans are screaming, we did. So I think being proactive is great. And I think having players in the loop is great. Having an educated union that knows exactly what the plan is and what's going to happen and what they don't want to happen and all this stuff should help to head off some of the labor disruptions that we've seen in the NHL's past. Now, thankfully, those were avoided a few years ago. But this agreement's up a few years from now, and you don't want to see them come up again. One thing he also said was that escrow's not being touched. So Gary Bettman said the NHL's basically open to the idea of raising the salary cap more than $1 million, but it's going to cost an escrow. And Walsh is saying no. He's not touching escrow. They're not going to have any kind of a negotiation where escrow goes up. And I agree with him. I 100% agree with him because the reality is that, yes, they could get more money this summer if they agree to basically funnel more of that money into a fund where it might come back. But they're only a year away from being done with it. The money that's owed to the owners by the players because of the 50-50 split in revenues, that's gone by next summer. So if they wait until 2024, the salary cap's going to jump big time. And what I'm really looking forward to is fans that are complaining right now that the owners are cheap, the NHL's cheap, that's why the salary cap's not going up, which is not true. But I look forward to a summer from now when the salary cap goes up by 8 or 9 million, those same people complaining. That's what I look forward to. And then those conversations becoming, oh, this guy's getting $11 million a year? How greedy is he? So that's the reality of what's going to end up happening. We're going to see salaries go through the roof. The $10 million salary cap number that people talk about a lot. No, you can't win a Stanley Cup if player makes $10 million or more on the salary cap, which is odd, but that's going to go away because we're going to have a lot more players making $10 million or more per season on the salary. And I think the right tactic for the union is to just go through one more year of a flat cap, and then they don't have to worry about it after that. It all goes away. So he also wants to talk about the arena situation in Arizona. Now, I will agree that Mullet Arena, while it's become this kind of rallying point, and it's fun to see these games, and you can see like announcers are right on the ice. Like it is a nice intimate atmosphere, but it doesn't look like an NHL arena because it's not designed to be an NHL arena. So they've made little changes here, and they've upgraded the locker rooms and whatnot to make it NHL level. But really, this is a stopgap measure. In May, when that vote goes down in Tempe, I think that's going to decide a lot of things. I don't know what's going to happen with the franchise itself, but the reality is that the NHL wants to be there, and if this arena is voted in favor of by the taxpayers, then they should get the arena. Again, there's the lawsuit from Phoenix, which may very well put a wrench in the whole thing, but I do expect there to be some sort of a resolution to this. So if it's rejected, they'll have a backup plan, and then we go from there with the Arizona Coyotes. But I understand the concern. The other part, though, is that the Arizona Coyotes are saying they're making more money out of Mullet Arena than they were making in Glendale in Gila River. So that's something that I mean, it's interesting. I'd love to see the math on that and see how they're making more money in the smaller arena. I consider that more of an indictment of Gila River than it is an endorsement of Mullet. But again, that's something that the NHLPA head wants to talk about. I've already started seeing articles on, will these players want to stay in Arizona and all this fantastical stuff, including, you throw Keller's picture on the article. People are like, is Clayton Keller wanting out? And the answer is no. And I don't think he does. I think as long as the team's transparent with the players about here's what we're doing, here's what the plan is, I think players will want to play. But at any rate, it is nice to see somebody saying the players should be in the loop in between agreements. It shouldn't just be about when you're negotiating that CBA. It should be the in-between stuff as well when they're talking about World Cup of hockey and how that's going to work and everything. So it's good to have players in the loop, and also he's going to be polling players on what changes would you like to see made in the league. And so if you're a big proponent of changing the playoff format, that's definitely getting asked to them. If you're a big proponent of rule changes, that's going to get asked to them as well. And who better to ask than the players on the ice who are out there 82 games a year during the regular season, and they're hoping they get to play 20-plus games in the postseason, because that means you go to the Stanley Cup final at the very least. Ask them what they want, and I think you'll get some interesting answers. All right. Other news. Lane Lambert says that Barzal could return to the lineup before the end of the season. This would be optimal for the Islanders for a number of reasons. First off, you want to make sure that he's 100% healthy. And secondly, you want to make sure that your lineup is set when you get into that first playoff series. In the event that they play against Boston, they have to have a set four lines and know what everybody's assignment is. I don't know how... I don't know that Boston has this huge advantage over the Islanders. I know they do points-wise, but when I look at the two rosters, I could see the Islanders giving them a really hard time. But if they end up against, say, Carolina in the first round, I like the Islanders' chances right now, but we'll come back. We'll talk about Carolina in a moment here. So the Jets, if they lose tonight, it's good news for Edmonton. That's why the Oilers' magnet's on the board, not the Jets. If the Jets lose tonight against Detroit, it clinches a playoff spot for Edmonton. So they're 1 point from clinching. They're going to be in the playoffs anyways. We know this, especially with that win over LA. And the goaltending they had last night from Skinner, if they're going to go anywhere in the playoffs, that's important. So his 10 wins in March also sets a team record. I thought it was interesting seeing who he had tied with that team record and seeing Tommy Salo's name. I was like, I haven't seen Tommy Salo's name in a long time. I looked at one point at doing a Tommy Salo video, and I was like, I don't know that there's a lot here, but it may very well be a video of mine in the future. But yeah, so it's nice to see the Oilers have a really strong month and end up second currently in the division. The better the Oilers are, the higher they are, considering McDavid, Draisaitl. I think it's good for the league. I do. I think it's good for the league. The National Hockey Card Day, of which, where was this when I was a kid? It's April 15th this year. So that is the day after the regular season ends in the NHL. It's an off day. So you can go to your local hockey card shop. There are a bunch that will be taking part in National Hockey Card Day. And it's the biggest day of the year for those card shops. So I don't plan necessarily on doing anything on the channel for National Hockey Card Day, but I could. Like, we could do a live stream. I could open various packs of cards. I have boxes of unopened cards all over the house. So, yeah, I think Yvonne would be okay with me opening some of those and liquidating some of it. And by liquidating, I mean opening the packs and putting them in boxes somewhere. I don't actually get rid of cards or sell them, because why would you do that? I'm a collector, not a seller. So, yeah, National Hockey Card Day on April 15th. It's in the U.S. and in Canada. If you're European, I'm not aware of anything in Europe to do with Hockey Card Day, but you could always call a local card shop and ask them. But yeah, so kind of a fun day. And again, it's right after the regular season ends, so we could probably do something. Although I'm also planning on having a meetup that day. That's the first meetup of the year, and it's a local meetup, because of course it is. It's going to be a busy couple of days before that meetup, so I'm looking forward to kind of a quiet day, knowing the playoffs start on the Monday, April the 17th. So last night, Boston set themselves a team record with their 58th win, and they've been winning at such a rate that it's easy to kind of overlook what they've done. So it's definitely something I'll look back on fondly. It's been a fun season. As a Boston fan, I have no expectations of a Stanley Cup. And when you look at the teams that have had more wins in a season than Boston, this is part of the reason why. So 2018-2019 was Tampa Bay with 62. Going into those playoffs, it did not look like anybody could stop Tampa. And then they didn't win a game in the playoffs. So all bets are off there. 95-96 is Detroit with 62 wins as well. They got stopped in the conference final by Colorado in one of the best series in NHL history. 1976-77, Montreal had 60, and 1977-78, Montreal had 59. Both of those teams won Stanley Cups because they were an absolute wagon. And this is before 3-point games. Before anybody says anything, yes, it was before 3-point games. Yes, if we'd had overtime then, they would have had more wins. But they don't. So the NHL record is 62, and we just accept that's the NHL record. We don't need a bunch of asterisks. You can put one on your phone or your computer if you'd like. You can just make sure it's a dry erase, because I'm pretty sure those erase off every single surface. They don't. Anyways, so yeah, Boston 58 wins. They're on pace for 63, but the way they've been playing lately, I don't know. I don't know that they get there. So, speaking of how they've been playing lately, I'm looking at power rankings right now. Now, I have an eye towards the fact that we are 2 weeks away from the end of the regular season. And I think when you're looking at power rankings, it should be more than just where everybody is in the standings. I think it should be who's playing well right now. Because as I've been saying in previews lately, the teams that are playing well going into the playoffs very often will have a lot of success in the playoffs. And I'm going to go through and do some research and do up a video on that as well. But right now on both the NHL's Super 16, so it's a bunch of writers that all have votes, Carolina's number 2. ESPN also has Carolina number 2. Both of them in their power rankings basically say they're number 2 even though they're not playing well right now. Which to me kind of goes against... Like, there's some movement you're going to see, and there's some movement you won't. And I get that, right? Like, for instance, Boston being at number 1. It is hard to argue against Boston being number 1. But right now, Carolina has been 8-7-1 in March. They lose that game last night late against Detroit, something that, they have to watch for. And that's after a 4-0 loss against Tampa. They are second in the overall standings. And I think part of what happens when it comes to power rankings is that the standings will end up dictating where certain teams are. And I know people have had that issue sometimes with my own, that, well, this team is 5th in the standings. Why do you have them 8th in your power rankings? Why are they 10th? Because for me, I don't feel like they're playing as well. Now, lately, things have been even more all over the place than usual, where teams like San Jose's won back-to-back games now. You see teams go on hot streaks like St. Louis, like Vancouver, who are out of the hunt, and they knock off teams that are in the playoffs. So it kind of throws everything into chaos. But for me, just looking at the month of March and the records, Vegas is 11-3-1, so they've been playing very, very well. The Rangers are 10-4-1, Edmonton's 12-2-1, Minnesota's 10-1-3, Colorado's 10-5-1, Boston is 11-4. Now, full visibility on this. Right now I have Carolina below those teams on my power rankings, and that's part of the reason why, because they're not winning the games right now. But it does have me, I'm going to go through the power rankings today, and I'm going to go through who's where and who's been playing really well, and I'm going to go through probably the last 3 to 4 weeks and just look it over. And because, again, I think it's important when you get into late season rankings, who's playing well going into the playoffs and who looks like they're ready. We see teams take their foot off the gas, and there are cases where a team takes their foot off the gas and then game 1 of round 1, they're great. But there are also cases where teams take their foot off the gas and then they can't turn it back on in the postseason, and a couple weeks later they're out. And there's all these, what happened? Oh, well, they were cold going into the playoffs. So that's something I'm looking at, and it's something that I'm definitely aware of. And I've seen a lot of comments. Last night, for instance, the NHL's Super 16 ranking, they have New Jersey pretty high, and they don't have Rangers anywhere near there. So the Rangers and Carolina, there were 2 teams that they had, and the argument was there that, hey, this isn't right because this happened. And I thought, I don't necessarily 100% agree. Like, for instance, on Saturday, I know that whatever team won on Saturday, their fans are going to be mad they didn't move up enough. But there's something to the idea that if a team has a really good week, they should. And if a team has a really bad week, they should drop. And they don't always. And again, with mine, I'm okay. And I'm not necessarily calling these out and saying, oh, they're wrong and they're false. But I do think that there are times where you will look and go, well, this team's where they are in the standing, and check. And that's why I watch every single game. That's why no matter if there's 15, 16 games, I try to watch every single game because I want to get a feel for which teams are actually playing better. And I do take things in consideration. Like if your team goes 3-0, but they go against Chicago, San Jose, and Anaheim, that doesn't necessarily mean they're playing really, really well. It means they were able to avoid those trap games against 3 lower-ranked teams. But again, it's all up for discussion. The power rankings are only a couple of weeks away from being done for another season. And I want to make sure that they're They're close to how everybody's playing right now, which, again, there are teams who've definitely taken their foot off the gas. Now, let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. If you cheer for a team right now that looks like they've taken the foot off the gas, whether it's Boston, whether it's Carolina, on some level it feels like Vegas has done that as well. Are you concerned about the playoffs, or do you say, you know what? It's fine. As long as they show up for game one of the playoffs, I don't care how they're playing in March and April. It's mid-April. From then on, I really care. Let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.